Gildan Media, a division of Recorded Books, presents The New Employee Manual, a no-holds-barred look at corporate life, by Benjamin Gilad and Mark Chussell, narrated by Barry Abrams. Introduction. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Gordon A. Eady. We are mavericks. We know you are too, or you wouldn't be listening to this. Who are we? Well, in short, we are two corporate renegades, two veterans who have seen it all, or at least a lot. We are Mark and Ben, your guides through corporate life. For the past 30 years, each of us has run hundreds of strategy testing simulations known as war games inside large and powerful corporations all over the globe. In these workshops, we dove deep into companies' cultures and their people's skill at competing. We are here to share with you our downright honest exposé of real life in the corporate world. You can't find two more different people than us. Mark is a refined product of two of the best schools in the world, Yale and Harvard. He is a serious guy, a teacher, a creator of strategy simulations, reflective and considerate, polite, and a deep thinker. Ben is an unrefined product, despite or because of his Ph.D., who takes nothing seriously, expresses everything brilliantly, and is direct to a fault. He also loved teaching undergraduate business students at Rutgers for 2 decades, because, as he says, where else can you find people who believe everything you tell them? Yet despite our differences, writing this book was the most natural thing for us. After many decades of working with seasoned managers and senior executives on 6 continents, as well as thousands of business students and young professionals, we share one passion: making companies and individuals more competitive. More competitive means less sloppy. We also share one perspective. Many companies that used to be competitive have developed dysfunctions that are robbing them of their futures. The one to pay for their sloppy or lazy or ossified thinking will be you, the listener, and it makes us mad that you pay the price for their sloppy thinking. This book is not your dad's or mom's employee manual. It's the new manual for corporate survival, fitting today's realities and the challenges facing employees who join or work in large, seemingly successful companies. Those companies already issued very specific and detailed employee manuals covering everything under the sun except how to compete well in our brave new world. Our manual will help you navigate the corporate, with a capital C, labyrinth. Where corporate's manual shapes you into a dutiful cog for the good of the machine, ours helps you enhance your career for the good of, well, you and your company. Our book should make you feel skeptical of empty slogans, obsolete rituals, obsessive pursuits, and bigwigs' playbooks that no longer work. That alone should be worth this book's price. Skepticism, you see, is a good thing, because it is only the skeptic, only the free thinker, only the maverick who asks new questions and finds useful answers. Who should listen to this book? This book is for mavericks. A maverick is an independent thinker, unorthodox by definition, since orthodox thinking is groupthink. Not all groupthink is bad, but how do you distinguish the bad from the good? You have to be a maverick even to ask such a question. Are you a maverick? Ask yourself, do you look for the big picture? It's easy to focus on the here and now. What makes people strategic is that they never lose sight of the broader landscape. They see the here and now in the context of the big picture. Do you reckon with other players' perspectives? Competitors, customers, regulators, suppliers, distributors, etc., when you plan your moves? Do you lead with logic as opposed to fables? Does everyone in your team or unit or organization understand what makes the organization succeed and how each person contributes to that success. If you already suspect something's wrong with the orthodox thinking in your organization or in those you've heard about, we confirm your thoughts and we provide evidence and support. If you don't, we open your eyes. In business terms, maverick translates into managers and professionals who haven't drunk the corporate Kool-Aid yet. We briefly contemplated using the classic acronym MPWHDCKY to refer to these individuals, but it seemed a bit cumbersome, and maverick is easier to work into good, solid grammar. Corporate, incidentally, would adopt the acronym MPWHDCKY in a heartbeat. Corporate loves acronyms. That, you will see, is part of what makes corporate, corporate. In short, this book is about being or becoming a maverick. Mavericks know when to swim against the current and when to let the current carry them a distance. Mavericks are critical thinkers. We offer you the tools you need to swim, float, and, above all, survive as a maverick. This book is a must supplement to traditional textbooks you've read over the years. Textbooks focus on functions. We focus on dysfunctions. Someone has to prepare you for not-so-pretty reality, and you may already be stuck in one and think, "What's wrong with me?" We are here to help. There is nothing wrong with you. We dedicate this book to all those mavericks, newly hired, seasoned but repressed, in the market for a new job, willing to commit to the skill of competing, and keenly interested in keeping their organizations as sharp and alert as they were in the early days. We met a few of those over the years. Now it's your turn. Welcome, Maverick, to your new employee manual. Part 1. Down the Rabbit Hole. Chapter 1. Corporate Dysfunction, Competing as a Skill, and You. Two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity, and I'm not sure about the universe. Albert Einstein. Welcome to corporate life. Now, throw away the handbook you received at orientation. Lesson 1 isn't about where to locate the cafeteria or how to contact human resources. It's about you and your ability to compete. With that in mind, we apologize, but we're going to start on a negative note. After all, false positivity is sloppy thinking, and we've already told you that sloppy thinking makes us mad. So here goes. The golden age of Western corporations may be coming to an end. As negative notes go, that's a doozy. If you are about to enter or re-enter the professional or managerial job market in business, you should know this. Old world Western companies are under pressure. Don't be fooled by their temporary high profits due to luck in the form of low interest and tax rates. The rise of China, the decline of innovation, the shrinking of free trade, and the aging of consumers put future profits at risk and place entire industries under threat of permanent decline. All companies ostensibly focus on being competitive. Even those that do not can still appear to outsiders as successful and powerful. The reality we witness in our practices can at times border on comic, defying gravity and reason, not to mention vision and market understanding. Quite often, the companies cultivating sloppy thinking and behavior are relatively big, though we provide examples of uncompetitive behavior at companies of all sizes later in the book. We want to say there is karma, but we can't. The success of big companies, you know their names, is often the result of inertia and luck. Big brands take time to die, but when they do, it seems like overnight. Think JCPenney, Netscape, Yahoo, Borders, Lehman Brothers, General Motors, MCI, AOL, General Electric. Somewhere earlier, a founder, a visionary entrepreneur, had a fantastic competitive strategy, and the company grew like the face of a book. Then deep pockets replaced smarts. So you might think corporate bigwigs will grab fresh thinkers by the shoulders, look deeply into their eyes, and whisper, "Go forth and compete as hard as you can for us. We need your business skills, your up-to-date knowledge, and especially your unorthodox ideas about competing." That may be true, unless you work for corporate, that is. Corporate, with a capital C, is a term we use to indicate companies with Dilbert-like cultures. They have been successful in the past, but have developed internal orthodoxies that replace the skill of competing with self-sabotaging rituals, taboos, conventions, habits, and processes that undermine their competitiveness. Dilbert is popular because it reflects more than a grain of truth about real corporate life. Are you working for a Dilbert-like corporate company? Are you contemplating the false security and grandeur of joining one? Consider this. Once you enter this world, you are trapped. You can't exercise your skill at competing, even though you, being a fresh thinker, are the company's first line of defense against competitive sclerosis. You can't even think because thinking takes time. Time is money, and money worships action, not thinking. Yet, there is growing evidence, reported in a 2018 Harvard Business Review article, that thinking is more important to competing. The big question is, do you have what it takes to compete? Are you competitive? Business schools teach students how to solve problems, but competition is not a problem. It is the normal condition of business. How do you know you make good competitive decisions? Many will fall into the trap of suggesting results as the ultimate measurement. As we show, though, results are both ambiguous and hard to interpret, as their direct cause is confounded by so many variables that the ability to pinpoint what led to what is obscured. We propose a different test. We say the correct indicator of your skill at competing is the quality of your decision-making process. That's also the ultimate tool we recommend you use in a dysfunctional corporate culture. Once you understand the symptoms of the dysfunctional culture, you can deploy your superior decision-making to make sure at least your decisions, within the constraints of the company and your non-CEO role, are competitively skillful. At the end, the skill of competing is a critical component of leadership development. It is as important for aspiring managers as preparing slides for their boss's presentations or reading obsessively the biographies of Jobs, Buffett, Sandberg, and Branson. Our competitive elevator pitch. Who are we to question large and powerful companies' skill at competing? We specialize in developing competing as a skill. We've helped thousands of managers slow down, listen to multiple perspectives, see the big picture, and anticipate unintended consequences. We believe in role-playing and computer-based simulations as the ultimate safe environments to observe, learn, and, most important, exercise that skill. It is not something one acquires by marinating in business school lectures. We know that because we've marinated too. We've studied in business schools and taught in business schools. Our key observations, though, come from real life, not business school. We've run war games for major companies on 6 continents. War games simulate moves by opposing parties, allowing companies to pressure test their strategies. The corporate dysfunctions detailed in this book are mental, not physical, so our approach is similar to psychotherapy. We identify the symptoms of decay, diagnose the causes, then prescribe behavioral, managerial solutions. That's why it's a business book. And unlike psychotherapy, we do not recommend years of weekly sessions lying on a couch. Customers don't wait patiently for you to solve your problems, and while making bad decisions is considered okay in corporate, lying on the couch in the middle of the day is not. Nope, you've got to get in gear and compete like it's your job. Spoiler alert, it is. You do that by first rethinking competition as a skill. Competing as a skill. The ability to compete is at the core of the ability to survive and prosper, yet it is hardly ever clearly defined or even discussed in the context of business schools or corporate training programs. It is instead assumed. It is similar to the quality of leading, which typically translates in the popular press to quoting Sir Richard Branson, Virgin's founder, or Sir Winston Churchill, or both. They are both British, so it's okay. Sometimes Elon Musk, too. As companies grow, the skill of competing is taken for granted. Smart strategy is replaced with imitation and tradition, and thinking competitively is reduced to, "That's the way we do things around here." A dysfunctional corporate culture discourages aspiring managers from applying their own skill at competing. Competing is a deliberate attempt to win or succeed. It's an effort directly geared to achieve one's goal when other players are involved, some of whom actively attempt to prevent that goal from being attained. So it is easy to define the opposite of skillful competing. Decision-making processes that produce decisions that so thoroughly ignore or discount any other player or high-impact agent in your market, they will inevitably lead to not succeeding. Note that we did not use the word losing. Losing is a negative word. In the world of corporate, negativity is a no-no. Yes, we meant the pun. Negativity hurts morale and causes you to lose, to not succeed. In other words, it is a negative thing to be negative. You'll hear more about it in the chapter on positivismitis. If you are a chess player and make a hasty move that exposes your king, you aren't competing well. If you run a marathon in high heels, you are probably not going to win. Corporate behaviors equivalent to exposing your king or racing in high heels, behaviors that can be judged a priori, in advance, as contrary to the attempt to win, are what you need to identify in order to improve your ability to compete. And no one exhibits those behaviors better than kooks and oops. Know your kooks and oops. If you are a maverick by nature, chances are you'll run into a kook sooner or later. Kooks, corporate, overconfident, oblivious cultures, are universal. A kook in the U.S. is the same as a kook in France or in Singapore. Only the quality of the coffee differs. You see, corporate is truly global. Get used to the acronym. Kooks adore acronyms. No one speaks English in kooks, not even in England. Instead, people exchange acronyms. It saves time, and in that time saved, you can be expected to do more meaningless busy work. Remember the TPS reports in the movie Office Space? That acronym was brought to you courtesy of the kook of Initech. The kook environment produces the oop, the overconfident, oblivious person, oop, who you'll hear more about in Chapter 2. It's almost inevitable. You can't survive decades in a kook without adopting some oop characteristics. But you must, repeat, must fight it as hard as you can, or you are lost. A list of prominent kook characteristics should help a bit. It is like eHarmony's list, a set of requirements you should keep in mind when going on interviews, talking to recruiters, taking the tour, and especially meeting with potential colleagues. Knowing if a company has a kook full of oops takes practice. The best way to get your mind wrapped around the concept is to think of your relationship to corporate as you would a personal relationship. Deciding on a company where you can build your career is not that different than deciding on a future spouse, after all. Behaviors leading to corporate divorce, that is, the end of your dream job. Once you enter corporate, your life changes forever. This is very similar to marriage. So what predicts a miserable marriage? A 2015 post in Business Insider reported on a 14-year longitudinal study of couples by John Gottman of Washington University and Robert Levinson of UC Berkeley that claims 4 behaviors can predict the occurrence of divorce. The parallels with which corporate treats its mavericks are so convenient, we figured we'd borrow the results for pedagogical purposes. Both corporate and marriage can involve disillusion and disillusion. But 14 years to wait for results? Wow. Corporate waits 6 months and then pulls the plug on most strategic initiatives. We won't keep you hanging like that. If some behaviors harm relationships, might similar behaviors harm your career? Occasional dysfunctional behavior is normal for all of us, and not necessarily an early warning sign. Some coasting, slacking, and sloppy thinking is expected in the frenzied pressure cooker of modern life. Some rituals and traditions even save time and have some benefit. When a kook cultivating oops is prevalent, though, the skill of competing atrophies and busy work rituals take its place. Let's take a quick spin through some of the behaviors that might indicate your relationship with corporate is headed for the rocks, or at the very least, a counseling session or two. Contempt. Contempt, a virulent mix of anger and disgust, say the marital studies authors, is far more toxic than simple frustration or negativity. It involves seeing your partner as beneath you, rather than as an equal. We've known managers who were promoted to directors and overnight developed contempt for anyone who was not a director. Peers who were equal thinkers yesterday became inferior thinkers today, saboteurs in their slow and incompetent work, and just not up to par. If you constantly feel smarter than someone else, says psychologist John Gottman of the University of Washington, you're not only less likely to see his or her opinions as valid, but more important, you're far less willing to try to put yourself in his or her shoes to try to see a situation from his or her perspective. In marriage, that can cause tension. In corporate, it causes executives to look down at competitors and employees alike. The feeling of superiority, though, has little to do with reality. Here is one example for contempt toward competitors. In a war game Ben ran with a huge medical distributor, management insisted on importing a machine of inferior quality to compete against a superior machine that was the market leader. The unspoken assumption was that given its size, humongous, the client could not lose, and offering a complete product line was more important than offering quality products. That's a classic cultural dysfunction of large companies. Imperial, entitled corporate, not seeing it was blinding itself with hubris. When Ben pointed out that this was perhaps misguided and predicted failure, he was sent into exile. The machine, by the way, failed. The company was later acquired. It is now a division in another, even bigger corporate. Corporate contempt toward its own rank and file is even worse. The idea that strategy can be informed from the bottom up goes so much against the corporate grain that when it happens, it's dismissed with disdain. Like this. Presenter. We were just informed that the earth is not flat. Executive. Who says? Presenter. Pythagoras from finance and Aristotle from business development. They said the way a ship disappears over the horizon proves it. Executive. What are they, scientists? Mathematicians? Presenter. No, philosophers. Executive. Relieved. Well, if we believed everything our philosophy department tells us. Presenter and executive laugh heartily. Presenter. We ran it by our consultants. They didn't love it. They said no one else believes it. HQ in Athens may be skeptical. Executive. Decisive. Okay, forget it. I am not going to rely on some philosophers who think the earth is not flat. Our modern-day experience suggests that the exceptions to corporate contempt for junior and middle management may be confined mostly to private companies. There, egos are less important than getting results. The message from the family or entrepreneur owner to the hired executive seems to be, when you play with someone else's money, you can develop an ego. When you play with my money, you better not. Treat newbies and middle managers with the utmost respect. They may be more competitive than you are. One recent example involves Olive Garden, OG, whose parent company Darden was taken over by an activist investment firm, Starboard. A story in CNN's Money in 2015 reported that the investment firm mocked OG's strategy of unlimited breadsticks prior to dinner. Darden's top management naturally defended the practice since that formula worked for years. Once Starboard took over and stopped serving endless breadsticks, patrons spent more on alcohol and desserts since they didn't fill up on breadsticks. Sales and profit went up. When managers at lower levels in the company presented the same logic, they were ignored by top management who knew better. Criticism. In relationships, says the divorce study we are using as a template, criticism can add up, feeding darker feelings of resentment and contempt. In corporate, criticism is officially endorsed when it flows in the approved direction, from the top down. After all, if one allows for a free exchange of honest perspectives, one may get into heated debate that involves criticizing strategy or execution, and heated debate interferes with do something, also known as the corporate cultural imperative. This is a huge no-no in corporate. Middle management is not to question top management's strategic thinking, and newbies are told by their middle manager bosses to shut up and go back to work. This is how things are done here. That trickle-down conformity kills independent thinking. In a strategy workshop at a famous consumer products company, a group of idealistic, company-minded young managers made a damning presentation of the division's strategy. The three executives in the room ordered them, in so many words, to shut up. In itself, that order is not uncommon. In some Asian cultures, less senior managers will not speak at all before the more senior ones do, let alone disagree with them. But the famous company's problem was that the role of the younger managers was to play devil's advocate and point to potential blind spots in the division's strategy. The division's performance continued to slide against the competition. A year later, the senior executives who ordered the warnings to stop were themselves ordered to go. Sometimes the karma works. Sometimes executives run business war games expecting or even demanding the games to confirm their strategies and thereby end criticism. In one case, a company was second in its market. The company president said being number 2 was the worst place of all. Mark pointed out that the president's strategy would most likely not result in being number 1, so if the president dislikes being number 2 so much, maybe he ought to try being number 3. He practically threw Mark out of the room. Oh, by the way, the president's strategy did not work, and he no longer works at that company. Defensiveness. In the study on failing relationships, taking responsibility for your role in a tough situation can be uncomfortable, but it's often what keeps a bad situation from escalating, says Gottman. The corporate corollary here is the cover your ass CYA routine familiar to every employee and manager, except first-day novices. The whole idea behind CYA is practicing the art of defensiveness. In some cultures, especially those with a strong class status, CYA is pronounced as bosses abhor admitting errors in judgment to their inferior in status subordinates and will kiss up by shifting the blame downward to them at the drop of a hat. In theory, The ability to admit a mistake is one of the most
Sample complete. Ready to continue?